Weston here with the Hidden Gibbon, and this is a candelabra of Tawnos. This is a Gaia's Cradle, and this is an Underground Sea. What do all of these cards have in common? Well, when I started playing Magic back in Judgment, the prices of these cards are very different from what you might guess they are today. Candelabra was sitting at about $20 to $30. Underground Sea was the expensive duel at $40 to $60, depending on what version. And Gaia's Cradle was sitting around $30, $40. Now you may be wondering, what is this about? Well, as I have made clear in many videos before, my biggest thing about Magic is making it affordable, accessible, and able to be played by everybody. I myself, I'm a working class person, right? I'm a working class dude. My wife is working class. We're a working class family. And for many people like myself, my family, and for many people on the lower end of the socioeconomic spectrum, Magic has become more unaffordable. And so, that's what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about how everything from the reserve list to staple cards that can be reprinted not getting enough reprints and sealed product have all gotten to the point where it has become increasingly difficult for those of lower socioeconomic status, those of working class, those even of middle class, aren't able to afford to keep up with the hobby and the thing that they love. Now, I'm going to break this down into parts, so feel free to skip around to the parts that you want. I'll make sure that they're marked and clearly indicated. But we're going to go over historical prices versus today's prices for both sealed product and for singles. We're going to go over what's causing the price spikes, again, going over things like the reserve list and sealed product, the real impacts that it's having on players and the game, and then solutions, because I don't want to bring up problems without representing at least my thoughts on how we can fix this. And then last, we'll summarize everything, we'll kind of talk about it, and we'll see where we go from here. Now, I can't tell you that I have all the answers. I am sure that this has been thought up of and talked to ad nauseum, but as somebody who works his day job 40 hours a week and who just is the average Magic player, I kind of wanted to give my thoughts on it. So, without further ado, I'm Weston with the Hidden Gibbon, and let's get straight into it. Historical pricing versus modern prices. Let's get straight into it. So before I begin, I want to let you know that I am using MTG Goldfish price history for most of this, but it only goes back to Mirrodin Besieged, and so I can't give you their pricing for cards older than that, but I know what some of these were prior to that point because I bought some of them. For these reserved list cards, I am going to talk about the three that I mentioned at the beginning of the video and kind of use them as a symbol for all of the reserve list. So for Candelabra of Tawnos, we'll start there. When I started playing Magic, it was about 20 bucks. I remember this distinctly. I still had a printout upstairs in a binder of cards that I wanted from high school. Yes, you can criticize me for not getting rid of that. But 20 bucks is what a Candelabra of Tawnos cost. According to MTG Goldfish, around Mirrodin Besieged, it cost about $54. And that is because High Tide made it a popular card. It started getting used in High Tide, and then my Fringe more tier 2 deck at the time, 12 Post, also started using it. And I remember this price spike in one day because I was in college, and I remember my friend Jason calling me and telling me to buy them off of, I think it was Star City at the time, before they went up. I ended up getting them for about $75 at the time. And nowadays, as of the release of Edge of Eternities, the average Candelabra of Tawnos price is $1,400. Now, when it comes to Cradle, Gaia's Cradle, it sat pretty low throughout most of its history. it was at around 20-30 bucks when I started playing. It was still around $30 when Mirrodin Besiege came out. And then now it's around $1,000 for a copy. And that's not even if you want a foil one, right? And then Underground Sea, when I started playing, it was the expensive duel at $40 to $60. And around Mirrodin Besieged, it was $100. It was still the expensive duel. And now a revised Underground Sea is around $950. Now for the reserve list, we all know that multiple factors have gone into this. And we'll get into those in the next part. Now, sealed product. We have some prices now versus then. I used to be able to go to my local game store and purchase a pack for about $2.50 to $3. That makes sense. And we all know that inflation is a thing. Cost of manufacturing is impacted by inflation. And so I could see $4 or $5, you know. But nowadays we have booster packs around $7.50. My local game store was selling the play boosters of Final Fantasy for $9.50. One was selling them for $17, which is something, let me tell you. And then we had precons. You know, we had precons for Commander. I remember like the Mael one, etc. in the Alara block. Those used to be around $35. Now, you know, we see the ones from Edge of Eternities and from the Universes Beyond set Final Fantasy. The Final Fantasy ones, the MSRP is around $70 for the regular versions. And for Edge of Eternities, they're sitting, I think I got mine for $50. And then, you know, the price of a booster box, right? A booster box back then to now really isn't that much different. You used to be able to get them from $80 to $90. Now they're about $130. So, you know, factoring in inflation, a little bit more expensive. And then we also have prices for Commander staples, right? Commander, we cannot argue, has caused a change in some prices for some cards. So now that we have seen where we were versus where we are now, how did we get here? And that is for the next part. We'll get right into what's causing these price spikes. So now that we've looked at where we were versus where we are for prices, we have to ask ourselves, how did we get here? What's causing these price spikes? And depending on what part of Magic you're talking about, there's a different answer for each one of these, right? So I'm going to break them down one by one, and we'll see if you agree or not. So first, we'll start with Universes Beyond premium product model, right? So we all know with Universes Beyond, they have to pay a licensing fee. We all saw the prices for Final Fantasy, where collector boxes shot up to $1,300 at their highest. Booster packs for play boosters were $9. Booster boxes were very expensive. The Commander decks were very expensive. And that's going to continue going forward with Universes Beyond, so long as they can get people to buy them. And they did, right? With Final Fantasy, it's the best-selling set of all time, despite the prices. But those premium products will, in the company's mind, demand a premium price. They're paying for the licensing fee, so they are trying to recoup their money. When it comes to artificial scarcity, though, we have secret layers. And secret layers used to be on a print-to-demand model, where it would be, we'll say, August 1st to August 20th. You could order in that time, and you would get your secret layer. Now, Wizards said that they went away from this because some people were having to wait a really long time for their secret layers after they ordered them, right? And in some cases that's true, specifically with the Commander decks. I think it's like the Heads I Win, Tails You Lose Commander deck. Some people waited over a year for their secret layer Commander deck. In my instance, I never had to wait for some of them. I bought the Praetors ones. I bought the LGBTQ plus one. But it did happen. So they moved to a first come, first serve model. Now, with the first come, first serve model, we have an issue. Because then they started printing cards that were only in the secret layers. Whereas before, they were existing Magic cards that were in the universe already, just with special printings. But then came the Marvel cards and the Walking Dead cards. Cards for, at least for a while, you could only get from the secret layers. And so with the Marvel ones, it sold out immediately. We had problems with scalpers, all sorts of problems. And I tried to get in on those, and I just couldn't. The only reason I was able to get a Deadpool one is because it dropped on April 1st without announcement. So I got in before folks really knew what was happening. But the problem is that causes a price spike in and of itself, right? These cards aren't in a set. They're not widely available in product. And so that drives a premium. That FOMO, the fear of missing out, and the limited availability causes artificial price spikes. For some of those Marvel cards, all of those commanders are sitting around 30, 40, 50 bucks. Just for non-foil versions, which I personally prefer non-foil because of the curling issues. But with that, and then we have our serialized cards, which honestly, when it comes to premium products like serialized, if those are expensive, that is what it is. I'm okay with those. But when we're printing cards that are unique and they're only in secret layers, and those secret layers are only first come, first serve, this creates a massive bottlenecking on supply versus demand. And it could be intentional, right? Driving that fear of missing out causes people to want to rush in and buy it, but then we also get things like scalpers, etc. Now, I will say, Wizards did do a better job with the Sonic secret layer. It's still available as of today, if I recall, and they limited the amount people could buy to limit scalpers. But the core issue still stands. You have to have those cards be available to a wider audience, otherwise they're artificially going to raise. Then we have the lack of reprints with selective staples, right? We all know that there are cards in Commander, in Legacy, in Modern, etc. that are staples that are not on the reserve list, but they don't get reprints. And the argument that has been used in the past for why some of these don't get reprints, right, is because it might warp Standard. Well, we print cards into Standard, or Wizards prints cards into Standard all the time that don't really affect the Standard meta, right? They'll have the one-offs, and as long as it doesn't synergize with the current Standard rotation, you're not going to see as many busted things. If you print Chrome Mox, Mox Opal, or Ancient Tomb, or even Rhystic Study into Standard at Rare, Ancient Tomb might cause a little bit of an issue, but is that any worse than what we already see in Standard, right? We had Mono Red and Izzet Prowess running rampant throughout the format. We have VV running rampant throughout the format, and if it causes that, you ban them. That's the solution there, right? But what it does is it gives people a reason outside of Standard to buy these sets, right? If you print Ancient Tomb at Rare, if you print Rhystic Study, if you print Chrome Mox or Mox Opal into these sets, have them so they aren't super useful or functional in Standard, but have them so that way people outside of Standard want to buy and open. It will, cause prices to go down. However, the fact that Ancient Tomb, Rhystic Study are only ever special guest cards, right? They're on the bonus sheet. It keeps their rareness artificially high, which keeps the prices for those cards high. Then we have the reserve list. Like the 3 cards I talked about earlier in the video, there are cards that a long time ago Wizards did something called Chronicles, where they reprinted stuff from the Dark, I think it was the Dark, Legends, etc. reprints. It was their first real reprint set. And people got very mad because they had collected cards and they wanted value behind them. And I get that, right? Everybody wants the thing that they spent money on to have value. But the problem with the reserve list now is that, say for example, my moat. It's over there in a box in Quain. The thing's already beat up, right? Say my house burns down, or say I pass away and Danae sells it or doesn't know what it is, and it's gone. The problem with reserve list cards are there's a finite amount of them in the world, every single year, whether it be the trash bin, house fire, water damage, somebody tearing them up, or something like that, there's going to be less of them. The price will always go up. And this was exacerbated by people starting to use Magic as an investment vehicle, right? You have some channels and some folks out there who are big in the Magic community who talk about and treat Magic as though it is an investment vehicle. Not really concerned with the playing of the game or the enjoyment of others. It is about how much money can be made off of it. And I'll be honest with you, we saw a huge spike around COVID with this. About the same time like crypto and NFTs were spiking. People started investing in these, and you saw reserve list prices shoot through the roof, and they're not going to come back down in any meaningful way. And then last, we have a permanent spoiler season. Now, this isn't individual card price based, but this is the spike in cost to people's wallets. The permanent spoiler season, right? We are just hit every couple weeks with different Magic the Gathering stuff, right? I have played this game for a long time, and I remember before Commander was everything, before it was even EDH, we got, you know, our three set blocks, and then we got a core set every year, and we didn't get Magic outside of those things. You got some starters, like 60 card starter decks with those, but you didn't have Commander, you didn't have From the Vault when that was a thing, you didn't have Secret Lair. Now it feels like every 2 weeks there is something new in Magic. And the problem is a lot of these products, whereas originally we have been told that, like, if sometimes the product isn't for you, right? You can disengage from the product, but that's not always true anymore. And so those are all the different things that have caused Magic to just balloon in price, right? And cause it to have a massive impact on real players and on the health of the game. And what are those impacts, you might be wondering? Well, that's what we're about to get into. So now that we've looked at why some of these prices are spiking, let's look at the real world impact that this is having on players and on the game. So first and foremost, I want to get right into this. The price, just bare minimum price of Magic the Gathering is increasing. We know that, as is everything in the current state of the US economy. But let's take some stats. I can use some numbers here. So I live in Iowa, and the average hourly wage in Iowa is $27.12. In the United States, it's $28.16, and then we all remember that minimum wage is $7.25 an hour. So let's kind of break that down, right? If I want to buy, say I make average for Iowa, $27.12 an hour. If I want to purchase a Commander deck, which, like right here, I still have the one pre-con wrapped. That was $50. I can buy that for 2 whole hours of work. A little bit less than 2 whole hours of work after you factor taxes. If somebody's working minimum wage, they're going to have to work over 6 hours to be able to afford that deck, right? Then we're talking about things like booster boxes. Okay. Some of those are sitting at 140, something like that now, right? And that goes from, you know, costs you 4 or 5 hours of your work. Now, but you say, Weston, and I've said this before, and many other channels, I know the Prof is a big advocate, to not buy sealed product. Okay. We won't buy sealed product. Let's say we want to play Commander, and there's a lot of budget options for it, right? But say you want to build a tier 2 deck, and your budget is $50, right? So a little less than 2 hours worth of work at your average Iowa or US job, and quite a few more hours if you're a minimum wage worker. And then you bring that to your local game store because you don't have a local pot. Well, then you get pub stomped by the person who spent $1,000 on their deck, or $1,500 or $5,000 on their deck, right? And that is a psychological incentive for you to spend more money to try to keep up with the hobby. Then you have formats that are constructed, right? You have standard, you have modern, and you have legacy and vintage. And I don't know if people play Pioneer. I keep forgetting it's a format, but Pioneer as well. So if you want to keep up with those formats, you have to buy in to the new sets, right? Vivi was $60 at release. I don't know what it's sitting at right now, but was $60 at release. And now it is the top card in the standard format, right? Vivi Cauldron, causing Cauldron to spike. So those people are having to buy those cards, and then, say it gets banned, and then it drops out, and then there's that feel bad moment where you're out that $60. And then we have the player fatigue I mentioned. If we're being bombarded by product all the time, right? So I work 10-hour days at my job. So say I make the median or the average of $27.50. I walk away each day with $270 in my pocket before taxes. $270 is, I would have $70 left over. This is, mind you, without taxes, from buying a Final Fantasy Play Booster box. $70. One whole day of work gone. If you want to compare the prices of what we have seen in some of these most recent Magic sets to cost of living, the average monthly cost for groceries in my home state is $334 a month, right? Which I can vouch for that. My wife and I spend about that a month for us and our daughter, right? And for the US, it's about $504 a month. That's, now when you start comparing that to, oh my goodness, a booster box is $200. That's nearly an entire grocery budget, right? Then, if you really want to get into the obscene, let's look at the price spike that we had on the collector booster boxes for Final Fantasy. They reached $1,300. That's literally the same cost as my mortgage is every month. We collect paper and cardboard, right? These are game pieces that are meant to be played with, and it hits people hard. So either you are hit by the FOMO and you spend money and you try to keep up and you keep latched in to that spend, or you don't spend on the hobby and then you fall behind, and then you feel bad when you play if you get blown out by new really pushed cards, right? Like if you haven't updated your deck in 3 or 4 years because economic circumstances dictate that you can't, and then you get blown out by a Vivi, right? Or some other newer modern card because you couldn't update. That feels really bad. And it pushes you to want to update your deck or just stop playing. And that is kind of how this might impact Magic going forward, which we've seen all the reports that more people are playing Magic than ever before, right? We saw that Final Fantasy was the best-selling set of all time, but how many of those players are sticking around, right? How many new players are able to get into Magic with the barrier to entry? Standard is pretty expensive to get into. Modern, Legacy as a format used to be the largest format in all of Magic the Gathering, and I would say a good reason why it started to die out was because of the cost. I'm priced out of it for the most part. I can't get back into that format. Very few people can afford those dual lands and such. And it creates this sentiment that, of wear and tear on somebody's mental, if you will, right? It fragments your community by having your budget players be excluded from being able to play with the whole, right? Because some people want to play with their super powerful decks. They don't make budget decks. Then there's folks that can only afford those budget decks. So it fragments your player base. Think of that in video game terms, right? So say you have a DLC that fragments the player base where everybody downloads these maps, but not these maps, back in the day of paid DLC. So then you had your player base some on these new maps, some not. And it fragmentates your player base, kind of keeping them a little bit separated, which ultimately is bad for long-term health. The feeling of FOMO only works for so long before somebody is so burnt out that they just give up altogether. Or you have people no longer buying into the myth that the product's not for you, or the product doesn't have to be for you, right? Because like I said, if you're somebody who doesn't like Commander, like I mostly play Commander because that's what my friends play and it's enjoyable and I like the social aspect. But if you're somebody who really loves Standard and you have to keep updating with the constant deluge of product, then it's going to get really, really old, right? And it's going to get very expensive. And we sit here and we watch it just increase every year. Every year we get more and more and more things to us. Every year the price goes up and up and up, especially with Universes Beyond being put into Standard when it wasn't initially going to be. With it being in Standard, the old saying of this product's not for you, if you're a Standard player, the only way for it to not be for you is to stop playing Standard. That's not a healthy thing for the game. And you know, for working class folks, especially in the current economic system where, you know, we see the data out there, right? We see the data that many people in this country are living paycheck to paycheck. Many people are struggling, right? And people want to be able to enjoy their hobby and should be able to enjoy their hobby, right? I know that there's folks out there who's like, well, if you can't afford it, you shouldn't play. Well, I'm here to tell you that life shouldn't just be about misery. You should be able to enjoy things, right? And hobbies and things like that should be affordable to all people. The people who are gatekeeping Magic, the people who think that if you can't afford the $9 booster pack, then just don't play. I'm sorry, but you should probably do some reflection, because at some point in time in your life you may have had a moment where you couldn't afford something when you really wanted to, and I ask you to look at how you felt during that time and have some empathy for those folks who just want to play the game, but because of the price they can't. So I don't want this to be all doom and gloom though, so we got to talk about solutions. No sense in bringing up problems if we don't have solutions. So here I'm going to get into those, right? I'm gonna give my ideas for solutions. Some of them are going to be pretty easy fixes, or what I see as pretty easy fixes, and some I will probably have people in the comments with pitchforks ready to burn me at the stake. But let's get into that. Now, we've talked about the impacts on regular folks out there, right? But how can we fix this? How can we move forward? Because for many of us, myself included, Magic is my favorite hobby. It has brought me so much joy, and I want to see Wizards succeed. I want to see Magic succeed, and most importantly, I want this to be a game that when my daughter is old enough to be able to play, that she can afford to without having to take out a second mortgage when she's an adult, right? So what are those solutions? We're going to go through solutions based on products, right? We've talked about things all over the board today. So we're going to go one by one through. So first and foremost, we need to slow down the amount of Magic the Gathering items released each year. I know this is going to be hard for Hasbro and Wizards. I know, because our current economic system, capitalism, dictates that there must be continuous exponential growth, right? The meme is number must always go up, line must always go up, hot stonks, that sort of thing. The issue is that, as many people know, exponential, limitless growth is just not possible, and it's not sustainable. You always have to one up and bombard, and at some point in time, there's a crack in the foundation, and that crack brings the whole house down. So here's my solution. We're never going to get them to stop releasing a ton of product a year. So here's my proposal. We do 4 sets a year. 4. Not 6, 4. 1 per quarter. That gives players time to financially and mentally recuperate, right? On Blue Sky and Twitter right now, I can't tell you how many frustrated people much bigger than me in Magic the Gathering, who are very frustrated that, there were Spider-Man spoilers during pre-release weekend for Edge of Eternities. How Spider-Man hasn't even released yet, and we're getting early peeks at stuff for Avatar The Last Airbender. And in amongst all of that, there's 19 million secret lairs. You can look at the Prof's meme of a new secret lair alert, right? And if we limited it to 1 per quarter, and then also 1 secret lair per quarter, right? So 1 set, 1 secret lair per quarter. I think that the financial impact negatively wouldn't really be a thing, because yes, you're not putting out as much stuff to pump out hype. However, you're giving existing players a chance to financially recover from the previous set release or previous secret lair, and able to save up to buy for the next one, right? It's essentially a long-term investment. You are banking on people liking your set, your product, whatever you want to call it, enough that they will save up to buy the next one. Like for me, I'm gonna probably buy like 1 or 2 singles out of Spider-Man, but for Avatar: The Last Airbender, because I'm a massive fan, that's where my money is saving. I am choosing to not really buy into Spider-Man because Avatar is coming, and I know the price for Avatar is going to be insane. Then let's go right into secret lairs, right? For secret lairs, I mentioned 4 a year. We need to return to a system that allows for more people to purchase. So I like the implementation that Wizards did with Sonic, where it limited the amount that you could buy in one go. Kind of helps with the scalpers and the bot buys, right? But I think, and this has been mentioned by myself, by other creators, people with far more clout than I do in the space, we should do a hybrid system. Wizards prints X amount, and if you get in right away, you get it shipped to you right away. And after that point, there's a date for a cutoff. So say it starts on August 1st, it sells out of the immediate stuff by August 4th, and then you have until August 15th to order print to demand. And then those are a longer wait. And to be honest with you, I don't see a really big difference between that and now, because I ordered my Sonic Secret Lair 3.5 weeks ago, and it just shipped out on the 8th. So, I'm already waiting. I'm fine with waiting if that means I get my thing. But it also allows for people to be able to buy in without having the risk of not being able to get it. Because there's still like a FOMO aspect to it, right? If Wizards wants to keep that, and Hasbro want to keep that exclusivity in there, right? You only have so long to buy it. You only have, if you want it right away, you have to get in right away, right? But it also fixes it so that way the cards are more available. So you won't have this pseudo reserve list of these premium unique cards printed into secret lairs that are only in the secret lairs and are very limited and going to go up in price. Next is a little bit more controversial. So I talked about 4 sets a year, right? I think that we should go back to blocks. And now not 3 set blocks, because they've talked about how 3 set blocks kind of caused fatigue. But right now, everything is just so jarring and not related. And I feel like they increased the amount of sets to try to get more stuff out. Now with 2 set blocks, you could do 2 related, right? So let's take Avatar, for example. So you could have set 1 be Avatar: The Last Airbender, and set 2 be Avatar: The Legend of Korra. 2 related sets, have interlocking mechanics, spreads it out so you can still have that financial recovery, keeps your fan base engaged. That one's just a simple one, a fringe one, but I think that might actually help with the price as well. Next is frequent reprints of chase cards. I talked about this a little bit in the price spike one, but we need to see things like Ancient Tomb, like Rhystic Study, like Chrome Mox, Mox Opal, and a lot of those reprints not just be on the list. Find a way to mechanically work them into the game in either standard sets or in Modern Masters sets printed as rares to make them more common, to be able to bring prices down for folks. Because I get it. I get it, Wizards. I know you don't like to acknowledge the secondary market at all, or even the prices beyond MSRP. I get that. I understand. But to make things healthier and to get people to buy more of your sets, put Ancient Tomb in as a rare. You can still have the premium versions, right? Like the Edge of Eternities ones, your serialized cards, those will still draw a premium price. I guarantee you. Pokemon does that and still gets premium pricing on the special things. But give us staples in a much more printed way. And if you're worried about how it balances standard, I understand. I really do. I've played through Legacy during busted formats. I've back in the day played some draft in some busted formats and some standard, and I tried modern, and I get that. But that's why we have a banned and restricted list. If a card becomes too much of a problem in standard, we ban it. If a card becomes too much of a problem in Commander and Legacy, we have always been able to ban it. And it worked for Nadu, right? That thing got the ban hammer. And then last, but certainly not least, we have the reserve list. Now, I want to make very clear that I also have a financial stake in Magic the Gathering, right? My collection, just my Commander decks, when I've added them to my collection on Moxfield, is worth somewhere north of $35,000. And that is not including the mountains and binders of rares, mythics, expensive cards, reserve list cards. I own some of those reserve list cards, right? But there comes a point in time where the value of my card is not worth the health and long-term stability of Magic the Gathering. It is not worth the gatekeeping of Magic the Gathering. And so I am here today to advocate for the removal of the reserve list. I know already I'm going to get hate. That's fine. I'm going to get people who agree with me. That's fine too. But Magic the Gathering should not be used as an investment vehicle. Collecting is fine, especially for those premium serialized cards, special art cards. That is a way to keep that investiture and that collecting intact in a healthy way that makes it so people can engage with the game and still have affordability. I think that Wizards should abolish the reserve list. And yes, there's going to be those investors. We all know that there's going to be those investors who just absolutely lose it about this, right? They absolutely do. And they're going to say, well, you promised us. And they might even try a class action lawsuit, right? But the amount of cost and the lost confidence in investors will be made up for by the amount of players you bring into the game. Imagine the kid who's like, my dad used to play with Candelabra of Tanos or Tabernacle at Pendrell Vale, right? My dad used to have all of these dual lands, and now I get to have them and play with them too. The memories that can be made. Those cards are all useful in many formats. So them being able to be reprinted, imagine how well a set would sell if you put the OG duels as reprints. You can make them white bordered, you can make them look different, whatever you want to do, and put them into a standard set. You don't even have to have fetches in standard at that time. Put the duels in standard and see how fast your set sells. And at some point in time, like I said, the Band-Aid, it has to be addressed. It's the elephant in the room that I know Wizards doesn't want to talk about. And I get that it can be a scary thing, not even from a business standpoint. I saw what happened when, the old Commander rules committee banned Dockside Extortionists and Jeweled Lotus, right? I saw the threats and the vitriol come from people who are like, I spent so much money on this card. And I get that. Like, I get people being upset, but there is never a place where the behavior I saw from that is acceptable, nor should it dictate the health of the game. Would you rather have a long-term health where people are able to buy and cards be worth a little less, or would you rather have your game become a gatekeeping tool where only the haves can play, where only the people who invested early can play, only the people who have the large incomes can play? Or would you rather have it as that game that's known for being accessible to everybody, regardless of socioeconomic circumstance, regardless of class? I love this game, and I see some pretty clear solutions. Some of those are going to be hard. Some of those are going to be easier. And I don't expect anybody to listen to what some little dude in his basement has to say about this. But those are my solutions. And you know what? It brings me hope for the future. Now, we've talked about a whole lot today. Where prices were, where they are now, the economic realities, what's causing price spikes, and how we can fix it. And I just want to end today with reiterating that I believe that Magic should be a game for everybody. And I actually have a lot of hope for the future of Magic. I see a lot of people that work for Wizards, that are big creators around Wizards, that they listen to, that love Magic as much as I do, that their passion, their joy is derived from the game. I see people like Gavin when he talks about card design, right? And how he manages Pauper, and just the love and care that is given to the game by folks at Wizards and those big creators. Like, look at the Prof, right? He has his critiques. He loves the game more than anything. Same here, right? I love Magic the Gathering. It brought me friends. It brought me happiness and joy in times in my life where I didn't have any. Like I said, it very well could have saved my life. And I think the real goal here is that we need to focus on making Magic better and focus on it so that way it can be around for when my daughter is old enough to play, for when your kids are around to play, or your grandkids, right? You want this game to be lasting for years. You want people to be able to still be, you want Magic to still be here, right? I want Magic to still be here when my daughter is old enough to play, and I want her to be able to play it and afford a mortgage and be able to do other things, right? I invite anybody here. Let me know what you think. How do you feel about the current prices of Magic? How do you feel about the amount of sets that are released? Do you feel hopeful? Because I feel hopeful. I feel that we can do this, right? I feel that between the good folks who work for Wizards, the amazing community that Wizards and Magic have, and the players like us, we can make sure that Magic is a game that will last more generations, that it'll be here when I am long since dust and my great-grandchildren are alive. But we have to do that by making sure that Magic the Gathering is a game for everyone. I'm Weston with the Hidden Gibbon, and thank you as always, and let's make Magic a place for everyone.